people knew how to use it best. They lured giants into swamps, trapped them in secret valleys, and dazzled them with light so they fell from mountain tops. Thanks to our brains and our bravery, after many years of fighting and death, we islanders won. It was a glorious victory, a good victory. The right side had won. So the giants admitted defeat. After mourning their dead, they in turn prepared to die as punishment for their invasion. But our people were merciful. They did not wish to shed one more drop of blood. Everyone had lost their appetite for death. Also, they had seen what the giants could do with their hands. The islanders looked around the shattered landscape, at the broken houses and streets. "You must stay and rebuild this," they demanded. "Lift the rocks, repair the walls, and make good what you have broken." The restoration took a long time. The sight of the giants slowly putting buildings back together became so familiar that, after many years had passed, the children of the island stopped being frightened of them. They liked to watch the giants at work. They would laugh and try to help. They would beg to be carried on their shoulders. At first, the giants resisted. They concentrated on their work. But the laughter of the children made them smile, and the giants and the children grew secretly quite fond of each other. And the rebuilding seemed to take forever. In fact, it seemed to be impossible. Because even though the war was over, the earthquakes were not. The minute a giant finished putting together a nice row of houses, an earthquake would come along and pull them all down again. This went on and on. At first, the giants had bricks and stones to work with, but the repeated shock of the quakes made the bricks and stones crumble eventually into dust. "It's like building with sand," they would explain, worriedly, to the humans. "We cannot restore your homes if there is nothing to make them with." They would hold out their hands and let the brick dust run through their fingers. The children would dance underneath the dust, laughing, not understanding how serious this all was. This dreadful business of stone shortage and brick dust made the islanders very distracted. They didn't watch over their children very closely. The children continued to ask to play with some of the giants. One day, a giant finally gave in to a little boy's entreaties and bent down and picked him up. After spending a day together, the giant took the child back to his broken street. The giant bent low to put the boy down on the ground. Before the giant straightened up, the little boy leaned forward and, overwhelmed by affection for his new playmate, kissed him for a moment on his cheek. This little kiss, innocent as it was, did something peculiar to the giant's skin. It began to harden, then crack, like bread in the oven. Then it began to turn a distinct shade of grey. "What's happening?" stammered the little boy, looking up into the eyes of the giant in front of him. "I feel..." The giant gasped, and then he clutched his throat, and he could not say what he felt any more, for he had turned to stone. In front of the frightened little boy, the 18-foot-tall giant, who just a minute ago had been alive, turned into a large stone statue frozen to the spot, half crouched, his hands around his own throat as if he was trying to pull words out, staring down at the boy with a permanent expression of surprise and dismay in his large stone eyes. At the sight of the playmate he'd accidentally petrified, the child sobbed, utterly heartbroken. But his tears were not necessary, because he had, entirely by accident, done something magical. He had turned flesh into stone. Most importantly, he had turned giant flesh into giant stone.